Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Serious topic for you today. Let's do it. Serious. What's the most terrifying moment of your life? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hearing my dad's panicked voice on the phone, "Your mom had an accident. We're at X hospital. Come immediately," and hanging up. Gas explosion. Mom was severely burnt. Thankfully, her girlfriends were picking her up to go to a restaurant and arrived there just a few minutes after the explosion and saw smoke coming out of the house and heard my mom screaming. My mom's okay right now. A week or two after my 18th birthday, I went to the hospital for a checkup, told them that something is wrong with my leg. They check it out and feel an abnormality, take me in to get an x-ray, then an ultrasound. They find a tumor the size of a tennis ball attached to my femur. I wait a few weeks and go get it removed. During the surgery, doctors noticed a weird abnormality with my heartbeat, and then my heart completely stops. I woke up in a hospital bed with my heart beating at 257 beats per minute. They had triggered a heart attack, giving me the wrong medication. I wake up a few hours later, sore as crap on some hardcore painkillers, and chilled out. I have to take medication for the rest of my life now, but at least I still got a cool-ass scar and no more tumor. Honestly, losing my 2-year-old in an IKEA, it was right at an intersection with access to shortcuts, so perfect place for them to be anywhere. First 5 minutes went quick. Next 5 were anxious. The 5 after that were pretty tough. The next 10 were the longest of my life. Found the little tyke at one of the kiddie playstations they have. Happy as Larry and none the wiser. A moment they'll never remember will be seared into my brain for as long as it functions. Getting the phone call from my wife saying I need to get to the local children's hospital ASAP, a simple checkup at my 16-month-old son's pediatrician, turned into one hell of a fight against cancer. There is a lot of uncertainty coming from all directions. Not knowing what will happen, hoping for the best and preparing for the worst can take a toll on a parent. The kid won the battle and is now 13. When my husband and I had a huge argument after he confessed to cheating, he took off in our car and I had no idea where he went. He was gone for hours. I called the police. Eventually, the police arrived at the door telling me he was dead. I couldn't fathom it. I went upstairs and took a shower to try and make my brain function. I didn't sleep for 2 days. One night changed my perception of him cheating. I never thought that he would do that. And I also lost him completely all at once. No closure. Rocked my whole world. Sexual assault. I was 20 and working as a nanny for a boy with cerebral palsy. His dad, around 45, worked from home. Was always pleasant and never creepy before this. As I was changing the son's pants one day, I felt his dad behind me brushing against my ass, and I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, until I walked out of the room to do laundry and realized he had locked all the doors. The layout was strange, and the rooms were adjoining, but he locked the doors so I couldn't leave the adjoining bedroom, laundry room, bathroom area. He showed up behind me again when I was pulling clothes out of the dryer, and I think we can all assume what happened next. His son was unable to move or speak on his own. He watched what happened next. I think you all can assume. I don't know if it felt worse for myself or for the son. I was so terrified that I froze. It's easy to think you'd be able to fight back until you realize you're overpowered. He looked at me nonchalant and said, "You're the best nanny we've ever had." I said I needed to use the bathroom. I unlocked it and ran to the front door and never returned. I had him removed from the nanny website he found me on. I told his wife, blocked them all immediately, and worked on finding peace. And he got away with it. Well, hopefully his wife held him accountable or something, but I don't want to say the word piece of shit, but I just did. A lot of heavy stories. I'm going to post one that isn't quite so serious. First year of college, I was borderline with my Chemistry 101 class. Long story short, I was on academic probation and needed to pass this class. I needed a B on the final to get a C in the class. The grades were going to be available the same day. The professor posted the results. I saw my grade, 13. 13 out of 100. I got an effing 13. I hit the couch in my dorm room, and I had to face the reality that I failed the class on academic probation and was done. I washed out of college. I had a mental breakdown. I had no effing clue what the hell I was going to do. I was going to have to go back home with my abusive family and deal with the failure. An hour later, I got an email that the professor had graded the exams wrong and the corrected grades were posted. I got a 92. In February, my daughter was extremely ill with anorexia and became suicidal. One night I needed to call the crisis team after it became obvious she was in a very bad way. While they were here, I had a feeling she was going to do a runner, and she did. In a previous suicide attempt, she'd run in front of oncoming traffic. She did the same that night. I heard her doing it and heard the car skidding, then silence. 10 minutes later, I hear sirens. For 45 minutes, I didn't know if she was dead or alive. I eventually got a call from the police telling me she'd been sectioned and was safe and unharmed. But for that 45 minutes, my entire world crashed. I really thought she'd died. I still can't bring myself to talk about this to anyone. It was horrific. My boyfriend, now fiancé, was sick for a week. He tested negative for COVID at the urgent care. 3 days later, so sick he can't move or eat. He wakes me up in the middle of the night mumbling that his chest hurts and he needs me to take him to the ER. Finally, I check him in. He's somewhat responsive to the nurses. They put me in the waiting room. 2 hours later, they put me in the family consulting room. They told me he had a heart attack, died, was resurrected, and was put on a ventilator for COVID. He was 25 years old. They told me to prepare for the worst because most people don't come off the ventilator after COVID. That was almost exactly a year ago. He was in 2 different hospitals for the next 2 months. He recovered, and we just bought our first house. ETA. The doctors at the first hospital later told us he had a 1% chance of survival. Almost no one came off the ventilator after having COVID. I was like 8 or 9 years old. My sister is 2 years older than me. My single immigrant mom found a place to rent in San Diego. All we knew is she was looking and eventually found a place with a Vietnamese family, which is the same culture as us. Thing is, she wasn't staying and only told us at the end. She made a deal with them to feed us, take us to and from school, etc., and for an undisclosed amount to me. We were self-sufficient on our own already. Yes, this was a total stranger that she'd spoke to and concluded was okay to do with. My mom was never the best. I want to say she did the best she could, etc., but yeah, she left us with strangers. She met after a couple of hours. My guess is she already spoke to them over the phone without us knowing. It turned out okay. It was a nice family overall considering. My mom has done other wild things before also, but that was my most terrifying moment, not knowing if she would come back. 2, I guess, or 3. First, at 13, having gone to a new cardiologist as we'd moved to Colorado and expected the usual no powerlifting, cardio is good, watch your weight. Cardiologist comes in after reviewing tests for a long time and says flat out, you either have surgery in the next 6 to 8 months or you'll die before 16. Surgery the following summer at 14. Second was mid-20s, following friends on a state highway, so it had stoplights. Speed limit was still 60. I see my friends go through an intersection. I see a van waiting to turn left, and I knew with 100% certainty he was going to pull in front of me, and he did. Didn't have time to hit the brakes. Little 2-door coupe versus full-size van. The fact that my sternum was sewn together at 14 meant it was thicker and sturdier. Otherwise, my impact against the steering wheel would likely have been fatal. Third, and most recent, had been going to a cardiologist like a good patient. Some tests are not to her liking. Sends me to a specialized team. Okay, off I go. After a day of testing, surgeon comes in and says, you're a prime candidate for a mechanical valve replacement. I asked for other options. Get your affairs in order. That was early November 2020. On New Year's Eve, I had my second open heart surgery, now on my second batch of borrowed time. I just wonder about your perspective of life, of anyone who's gone through, things like this from youth to their whole life with, health risks that are life-threatening. Glad you're still here. The moment when I realized that I had left my kid in the bath sling with the water running, I just went to grab my phone when it rang, but the person on the other end had a quick question. I had to look up the answer to about my schedule. Then I just got distracted. I'll never forget the feeling of horror when I realized what I'd done. She was perfectly fine. Water was just at her feet and legs, but that fear stayed with me and caused a few nightmares. When I was a teen, I attempted to take my own life. Luckily, I survived, but there were a few moments when I thought I was going to die, and all I could think of was how much I wanted to live. Knowing that it might be my last moments scared the shit out of me. My family was with me in the aftermath of the incident, and I went to therapy and got better. It was honestly the worst and most terrifying moment of my life, till date. The first time I ever had an aura, basically a minor epileptic seizure. It's difficult to describe the state of mind it puts me in, but basically, it's just a sudden, overwhelming sense of deja vu and absolute terror for no explicable reason. I suddenly and completely forgot what I was doing, and then I found I was unable to talk. I could think of what I wanted to say, which was help, but my mouth refused to form the word. And then I got this very strange smell, almost like a fume, but far more intense. It seemed both alien and strangely familiar, and changed depending on what I was looking at, from a sort of sweet chemically smell to something more skin to gasoline or acetone. I later found out that this was essentially an olfactory hallucination, or synesthesia, blending of the senses. I was smelling colors. I also became quite shaky and was overheated and sweaty as a result, which only added to the uncomfortableness of the whole experience. These began happening and eventually became full clonic seizures, where I pass out and thrash about. It's not fun. However, because I always get an aura before the full seizure begins, I usually have time to get myself in a safe position before I lose control and pass out. The full seizures are worse on my body, of course, but I'm not there for them, so the auras are still scarier to me. May 20th, 2013, one of the largest tornadoes to hit Oklahoma City. I was about 20, a category EF5. It ended up destroying a vast part of Moore, Oklahoma, a suburb of OKC. Cell towers went out. People weren't able to call one another. I raced back to my parents' house with a dog I was dog sitting for. Hail and rain hitting my car as I drove across the highway to avoid the tornado. Thankfully, my family and I were fine, but about 24 people died. I never saw my father so relieved when he saw me. Tornadoes are no joke. People had about 8 minutes of notification before the tornado touched down. If you're involved with a tornado, please put shoes on and seek small, compact rooms like a closet or bathroom with no windows. I mean, at the end of the day, we can fight against it or do all we can or try to ruin it, but nature wins. March 13th, 2013, 6:31 a.m. Me and my brother were crossing the street to catch the bus. I was struck by an SUV. It missed him by inches. I broke both my legs and my back all in one go. For the next 75 hours, we were unsure if I'd ever even be able to use my legs again. It was the most terrifying thing of my life. I remember lying in that hospital bed thinking, wow, this is it. I thought my life was over. But by a miracle, I woke up in the middle of the night on the third day, and I could feel my legs. And for me, there'll probably be never a more powerful experience. Not the most terrifying moment, but the one when I left or felt the most terrified. You'll get the difference in a moment. A few months ago, I was talking to my father in the kitchen. He was cleaning. I then finished, walked away, and as I was entering my room, I hear a huge commotion, followed by a sound of glass shattering, followed by a loud "Hurrah!" I rush back to the kitchen, and I see my dad standing in the middle of the kitchen, and everywhere there is blood and shattered glass. He has blood on his shirt and beard. There's blood in the sink, on the floor, the fridge, everywhere. It took me approximately 0.001 seconds to jump in front of him, and two things hit me. He's looking more pissed than anything else. He's not shouting or screaming in pain, and there is really too much blood. Like it's surreal. I've seen people bleeding hard, and nothing even came close. There was like 3 seconds between him swearing and when I saw him, and literally liters of blood. So what happened? He was making a beetroot leavening. An effing beetroot leavening. It was standing in a 5-liter jar on the table for days at that point. Turns out when I left, he picked it up to give it a stir, and the damn jar broke. He swore as he was understandably pissed, and as we're Polish, lol, but to me, it looked like he was shot with a shotgun at point-blank range. In fact, he wasn't even scratched, but for a second, which felt like forever, I thought he's becoming a past tense.